This meeting will be recorded and uploaded to the council's YouTube channel. And after this meeting, there will be a demonstration, a short demonstration that will be given on the progress of the development of the council's new website. And for those members that are online, if you can note that you will need to join the other link for the presentation of the website after this meeting. So you'll need to transfer from this meeting link to the actual meeting link for the presentation of the website. And with that, I'll ask if there's apologies for absence, who the substitutes are, and a calling of the roll. Over to you, Fiona.
Thank you. So apologies from Councillor Baird, Councillor Boyd.
Could be online. Not
Here, apologies from Councillor Campbell Sinclair. I have apologies from Alistair Christie and John Edmondson is here to substitute. Councillor Coburn. I'm here. Councillor Fraser.
Not yet.
Councillor Green.
So he must be apologies away this week.
I have apologies from Councillor Hendry and Councillor Oldham is substituting.
Yeah.
Councillor Boyd has just joined us.
Councillor Jarvie.
Afternoon all.
Afternoon.
Councillor Jones.
Yes, I'm here. Good afternoon.
Councillor Lobbin is an apology and Councillor Finlayson is substituting.
Hi, I'm here. But Councillor Boyd.
No, it was Councillor, thanks Bill, but it was Councillor Finlayson, John, that's substituting.
Yes, I'm here, Bill. Here,
He's a bit far away. Sky.
Yes,
Sky.
It's further away.
You're sounding very muffled and quiet today, John.
He said, I'm here, Bill.
I hadn't even noticed it's you, Raymond.
Apologies from Councillor Mackenzie and Councillor Gowans is substituting. Apologies from Councillor McIntosh. Councillor McPherson.
Apologies, I am here.
Councillor Saggers.
Yes.
Councillor MacDonald.
No, not yet.
Mr Gibson.
Yeah.
He's here online.
Yeah. And Ms Stewart.
Thank you. Okay, the board's moving on to agenda item number 3, which is the minutes of the previous redesign board on 27th of March. Are members happy to agree the minute? Thank you. Then on to item number 4, and that item number 4, which is the work programme update. And over to you, John.
Thank you, Chair. What I'll do is very quickly just give an overview of the reports. There's a couple of substitutions here, so I'll maybe just give the overview to start with. So there are 4 projects which are to the design board by council, food in schools, roads redesign phase 2, and the operating model for communities review. On the agenda today, we've got separate reports on last 2 roads and abilities. So this report is focusing on my council and food in schools. My council, just a reminder, I think you'll be aware, it is about modernising the way that we interact with our customers, our service users. So there are 3 projects within that. One is about customer contact, customer engagement strategy, we now call it, which that project is very near to being closed. We then have My Highland, which we used to call the end-to-end customer journey, which is looking at how we do transactions online. And then we have customer contact methods, which was looking at introducing a new telephone system, which has been done. And key focus there now is about the Redesign website. I have with me you can answer any detailed questions, particularly on the customer engagement side of things. Quick update on the other two projects. So on my Highland, we are progressing very well with looking at how we can look at council tax online, because that council tax will be the first service that online, and it will act as a better model for how we do other services, because a lot of the things that we need to consider for council tax, so security and authenticating people, connect to systems, learn the lesson in council tax, and that will be applicable to other systems. So we are in the sort of final stages of putting together the detailed options appraisal business case for taking that forward. The customer contact methods, as I say, the new telephony system was introduced, so that bit of the project's complete. So really, the main focus now is on the website, and following this meeting, there will be a demonstration of what we've got to so far. A number of you will have been involved in workshops leading up to that, and put your views across, and they will be, that's part of the whole journey of where we got to with the website design. So that's really just a quick overview of my council. Food and schools. Sheila here. Any questions on that? Sheila, do you want to introduce anything? If that's okay, Chair.
Yeah, absolutely fine.
Sheila.
Thank you, Chair. So from the feedback we got at the last workshop we held, it was very helpful in the guidance you gave us at that workshop. We took that away. We redesigned some of the surveys that we're going to put out, and we launched the surveys on the 2nd of June, which was Monday. So you all should have received an email on Monday as part of that. We've put that out to head teachers who are disseminating the surveys across primary schools, secondary schools and special schools. We have had a fantastic feedback response rate. Since launch on Monday up until 1 o'clock today, 2,057 responses. It's just absolutely, the comments that we're getting are so constructive, really helpful, which we will share with yourselves at a workshop or later redesign board, whichever the chair decides. If I could encourage elected members to complete the survey, we can recirculate that to you if you've just missed that email in the second. Really appreciate you get lots and lots of emails. But thank you to those who have completed it, because really constructive what's coming back. But I'm happy to answer any questions.
Is it anonymous?
It is, yes.
Okay, any reflections on that? Trish?
Yeah, I found it quite interesting trying to fill in that survey. I was like, well, I don't really know. It's a long time since I was somewhere else. Okay. But taking the feedback from the grandchildren, there are days when there's nothing that they would eat, right? Quite often it's, well, had it baguette, well, what did you have on it? Nothing. So there's work to be done. Yeah.
Thanks. It's great to have so many responses. Is there any correlation with some of the schools? I can only talk about schools in my own ward who have been looking at the school diet, so to speak, and working what's worked well for them and incorporating that. I can think of Fridays, one of the high schools do a cold lunch, so the youngsters can, if it's a sandwich lunch, they can pick it up and go. They've had a really good initiative with their barista, their barista maker, so that's gone down really well. And the smoothie breakfasts, managed to get something in for that. So I think it would be good to really work on the good practices out there and maybe share it with other schools that, you know, maybe get new staff and all the rest of it, and you've got a new year group coming in August. Yeah, that's really helpful, and that's something we intend to do when we get the responses back. Okay. Is to see what correlations there are between all these different things on all these initiatives that are taking place.
Okay, thanks for that. Barbara, online.
Hi all. And looking at, I was involved in this at the start and been speaking to kids and teachers in the schools, and it seems to be spaces to eat. Kids are rushing eating their food because it's a noisy space, there's queues, and it's an echoey space because it's usually in the gym, which is high ceiling and clattery, you know, the plates are clattery and stuff. But the most popular thing seems to be, as Muriel says, is the grab and go food because they want out of there. They want to eat it outside. So when we're building these new schools, maybe for current schools, is looking at covered outdoor spaces, even just like a canopied area with some seating in it, so that the kids will actually sit and eat their food in the school rather than leaving schools. You know, just to give them a welcoming, homely space somehow to eat their food. Plus, when kids are just doing the grab and go food, we're actually not encouraging them to use cutlery. You know, it's a basic skill. All kids should be using cutlery. And well, when they grow older, what are they going to teach their own kids? That all food is by hand. You know, we need to think the life skills that we're not teaching kids and that they're not passing on to their own kids when they get a bit older. But otherwise, one of the things Alan Gannard mentioned was about the food waste, was about the fruit, because there's a quota of fruit per child, blah de blah, and throughout nurseries and stuff, whereas fruit's usually kind of on the side and they're not picking it up because their hands are full. You're not wanting to stick an apple in the middle of a plate of macaroni and chips, for example. But have we ever tried a fruit bowl on the tables that they actually sit at? So it's there for them to pick up as like a pudding course kind of thing. I mean, if the fruit's going in the bin anyway or going out, it's why not just shove it on the tables? Like you would at home, you would have a fruit bowl at home, or at an exit point as they're going out, they can grab the fruit. We maybe just need to distribute bowls of fruit around schools, that's it, so that they're actually getting the nutritional side of the offerings. Just a thought.
Thanks very much, Barbara. I knew you were the right councillor on the working group for food and skills. Thanks, Barbara. Any
Okay.
other points? Any other points to do with food and schools? Any other points to do with the other sections that we've covered before now? In points before up to point 7. Muriel.
Thank you for letting me come back in. Another question that was raised at the Parent Council last week was the Friday afternoons, because our schools finish early on a Friday. Could the kitchens be used for the community? And the particularly in secondary schools, the senior pupils, if they wish, could be encouraged to do some cooking and do some intergenerational work. And I thought that was a pretty reasonable idea. I don't know about the legalities with buses, but for communities where the young people don't drive, but that would sit in with community planning partnerships and all sorts of stuff, and not necessarily on a weekly basis, but maybe, you know, once a month or something. It might be quite nice, warm space, good food, because everybody is talking now about nutrition and home cooking and skills. And frankly, even I've lost a lot of my cooking skills, you know.
Okay. Thanks for that. Russell?
Yeah, thank you. A couple of weeks ago there, I'm on the board of the Cairngorm National Park, and we were at a visit to a farm which is in Perthshire, but is still a national park, obviously. And the lady at the farm has young kids in the school, and she was telling us that she is in dispute with Perth and Kinross Council because they don't have meat options on the menu often enough, and in the same way as some parents maybe decide that their kids shouldn't be eating meat, she has said that her children will not be eating any soya products and that they should have a meat option. It was just to ask to confirm that, do we actually have a meat option in Highland? And that's not the case, that we go days, as in Perth and Kinross, apparently they go days when there is no meat options on a menu. Do we have that option in Highland? Thank you.
Sheila?
Yes, thanks for that, Councillor Jones. Yes, we do have meat options on the menu, but perhaps what we could do is just circulate the menu to you all so you can see it. If you're not familiar with it, so.
Okay, back to you, John.
Um,
I know that sections 8 and 9 are already covered in the agenda. of the
Yeah, so I
redesign.
wasn't cover any more about those. Just
Okay.
coming back round onto my council, as I say, there will be a follow-on after this. Where we get into more detail.
Thank you very much. There's no other questions or comments. So are we happy to note the work programme update?
Noted.
Okay, thank you. Moving on to item number 5 and Tracy.
Thank you, Tracy.
Oh, thank you.
Thanks, Sheila. Okay, this is the road improvement project phase 2.
It is. Thank you. Good afternoon, members. This report provides an overview of the progress with phase 2 of the roads redesign project. And work has been progressing on several initiatives that were identified during phase 1 as needing improvement, particularly with regard to digital infrastructure. And that means us moving from a Windows-based asset management system to a cloud-based one. That might not sound very exciting, but what it will enable us to do is it will enable us to improve the management of traffic regulation orders, and I'm sure most of you have had experience of those, and also to improve how we manage and monitor the movement of abnormal loads. This new technology will also help us to achieve a potential reduction in FOI requests, complaints and repeat contacts, because it does contain the ability for us to have better communications with customers and other interested parties. And details of those additional business outcomes are detailed in the appendix. Some of those are dependent on the broader organisational development improvements, such as the My Council website that we've been speaking about earlier. Additional resources have now been secured to support the ongoing transformation of the road service, and these are detailed in section 7.2. And this will enable us to progress key projects, which include the improved defect reporting through AI technology, route optimization for winter gritting, and automation of job card processors, which is very much linked to the activities undertaken by Amenities as well. This new team will be in place by the 30th of June. So following this, we'll be able to provide the board with much more information about the project plan, timescales, and how we're actually going to be progressing those key projects, which I know everybody is really interested in. So that's the updates that I have for you today. Happy to take any questions, Chair. Thank you.
Does anybody have any questions? Any questions or any reflections? So, welcome to Redesign.
Temporarily substitute at the moment. Thank you. Yeah, I welcome a lot of the stuff in this report, and as a new member, been very absorbed in traffic temperature regulation orders and abnormal loads, and I'm just wanting some reassurances about. I really want going over to the digital cloud-based system to just duplicate or mirror what we might be doing at the moment. I think it might be an opportunity to look at the way we do our consultation processes and the whole process. I think just mirroring it in a software, it's now an opportunity to look at the way we do these two aspects. You know, I understand the difficulties. The legislation dates from 1984, 92, 91. It's old, but I fear that some of our process might be just as old. And I think the world has changed, and we need to maybe look at the way we approach consulting people on these things.
Yeah.
How is it transferred digitally over? That's what I'm trying to get to. I don't, you know, it's an opportunity to change, I think.
Indeed, we won't just be transferring what we do now onto the new digitised system. There will be the opportunity to review, and that's already happened, how we actually do things and how we can make it better and more efficient. I mean, we do understand there's quite a lot of frustration out there when we have to do road closures and improvements to junctions or safer routes to school, road safety. All of that requires traffic regulation orders, and people do get extremely frustrated sometimes about the process, and a bit of dissatisfaction as well about the consultation that is carried out. But as I tried to explain earlier, what we're doing now will enable us to have those improved connections with utilities and other services, as well as for communities to be able to access that information more readily. So it should lead to that improvement that you're looking for.
Okay. Meiste McKellar, Halsen, Janski, and I'll come to how.
Pardon? Agus Falche, good calling a Gelta.
There he
Good
is.
afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the
Good afternoon, John. How are you on over in the Isle of Skye?
Past 4. Helicopter.
Oh, I think you're on mute. No? Oh, we don't have the volume up
We
there.
can't hear you, John. Is that you?
Shame, John.
You think that's great.
Hang on, John. We can't actually hear you.
Still on silent from
How's
yesterday.
that?
That's it.
That's sufficient.
That's okay.
That was John Bruce that said that. If you want to come and get them over here next time you're back.
Okay, I'm just checking you can now hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. Yeah, I mean, really interesting to read this. And you know, and I notice at 6.2 we've got review of roads core functions. And you know, within all of this improvement, which I think is absolutely needed, I'm just wanting to check that we're going to make sure that all our staff are appropriately trained. And you know, there will be an expectation that all members, you know, within the roads team are using the most up-to-date technology and the most up-to-date programs that are in place. Because when we talk about the core function of roads, we all know, and certainly in Skye, what people regard the core function of roads to be. And that categorically is roads maintenance and filling potholes and making sure we get our planned programme moving forward. So it's just to make sure that we're going to ensure that all our staff buy into this. There is training available locally, and I think most importantly, it doesn't impact on what we all see as the core functions of the roads team.
Thank you very much for that. There's no other hands up, so I hope you don't mind. Beg your pardon, Duncan.
Thank you, Chair. Sorry, it was just John was talking about roads and the core functions of it. In John's ward, there is a road that goes from the Glenelg ferry. When you reach Skye, the Glenelg side of it, the road in Wester Ross, is in good condition. But when you meet the same single track road, having crossed the Narrows at Cowrea, is it Cowrea or Cowree? Cowrea. The road, the next section of road from there, where it joins the road between Broadford and Callacan, is in a shocking state. I've cycled it before, and I wouldn't dare cycle it after having driven over it last. It was April. It was just in a. You were going so slow to avoid huge potholes. Is that one of our roads? It'll be like a C-class road, but obviously a lot of people want to do that. Travel over the sea to Skye journey.
Sure, we're not here to actually advocate on the different road conditions in each of our members' wards, because that's the job that's down to themselves. So maybe Tracy can pick that up with the members of the Skye and Rassay committee and their roads operations manager.
Okay.
Reflecting on the paper myself, it'll be no surprise to John that it was 6.2 and I was focusing on, and also item 7 on page 17, which is strategic planning management of assets. For those of you who are members of the Redesign board, you'll probably know where we're going with this, but those of you who are not, there have been workshops. Tracy and the roads team have had revenue and capital workshops.
Yes.
We felt that they were good, but that we felt that they were not quite complete. Those will be looked at in phase 2, with a particular focus on continuing the work outlined in 6.2. For me, I take a sharp intake of breath and I see that scheme prioritisation then is linked to the implementation of Scott's guidance for scheme prioritisation. I think you know my views on that, and I'd like to be able to focus on that when it comes to phase 2. Just I've got a wee smile on their phase 2. I think there's a number of members who have that consideration. We're looking forward to that workshop, but it will be a challenging workshop. And those workshops will now actually challenge members to understand how we determine the need, so that at this moment in time, the capital programme is determined in terms of where we've been to over the past 2 years to date. But we did say that the redesign board would then advise council on how we would reshape that, so that we can then look at different areas at different times, depending on the different nature of the road systems in those areas. And also, if the current distribution process, which many members will have a view on, if it's fit for current purpose for the entire Highlands. So that's not for a debate today. That is just being outlined that's where it's going to go in phase 2. And I would really encourage all members, when it comes to that, to get involved. Please don't be on the periphery, because there will be decisions or there will be advice going to the council based on all the workshops that we have done, that council will be asked to adopt. If council then doesn't take it on, it means that we haven't really scoped it out sufficiently enough at the redesign board, and I wouldn't like that to be the case. Okay, if there's any other points? No. Okay, we're asked to note the road improvement project phase 2 report. I'm happy to do so. Great, thanks everybody, and thanks Tracy. We're moving on to item number 6, the final item of today's redesign board, and that is the future operating model for amenities review. And Malcolm is going to speak to this item.
Thank you. I'm just checking there is no one from amenities here. Unfortunately,
why do you want to?
Unfortunately, Debbie's on leave, and so I'm on my own.
You're on your
and apologies, I'm late. I didn't mean to be here for the last item, but I got help.
What a hard time we're going to give you.
So the paper is fairly self-explanatory. It's the start of the process, and I don't know if Tracy did mention in terms of her introduction, but you know, our long-term target operating model for within the police cluster is to merge together as closely as possible the functions that make most sense, and clearly roads and amenities used to be more integrated than they currently are, and certainly I'd like to see that happen over the course of the next few months. So the 2 reports on roads and amenities effectively should be read as one, because I think a lot of the work streams will intertwine, and there's a lot of similarities in terms of process, in terms of workforce, in terms of distribution, in terms of plant machinery, that we can as a council make much more use of. So whilst the 2 are separate reports, I think going forward under the redesign banner, it makes eminent sense to be looking at this all as one. So what Debbie's been doing in terms of the amenities review, if members remember, last year we did have a lot of feedback on the extent, quality and strategy around amenities, particularly related to grass cutting, not surprisingly. And so I think, just being frank about it, a lot of that was down to, you know, previous difficulties that have been from a financial point of view that certainly at this year's budget have been addressed. But with part of that, addressing that seasonal workers, was the requirement for us to deliver an amenities review. And in order to do that, we were given £100,000 on top of the work to supplement the seasonal workforce, which has happened, and I'm pleased to say that's happened. And also the work to better engage with schools, better engage with facilities management, particularly within school settings, but also to take a longer term view over the course of this year on what we need to do going forward. So in order to get some external advice on this, we have appointed someone from APSI as a project manager to help us with that. And that's been really positive in terms of just allowing that third party look at our setup, what we're doing, how we can prioritize better, and also how we can improve and make efficiency savings. And I know that's always a code for budget cuts, but what I really mean in this case is efficiency, about how we can operate better. So some of the back office functions that exist in roads in terms of really moribund and dated processes for job cards, a paper-based approach, also exist in the amenities team. So what is going to happen will be that the external person will also help with that piece of work. So you can see in the report the kind of team that's been set up to do it. Again, when I got to this report, I did make the obvious observation that it is very focused just on amenities, so that will be supplemented with actual roads managers as well, just to make sure there is an integration across both services. And you can see the project will review current practices, including much better mapping of what we do, when we do it, and how we do it, so that not only is there a better way of planning activity, but also there's more transparency for members and for the public about what the agreed standards are. And, you know, so people can see it's not just, you know, for example, where we have, and I know it's sometimes a controversial topic, but where we have set aside areas or rewilding areas, which actually have a really positive role to play in our biodiversity strategy and our dealing with the ecological emergency, can be seen by some as just not cutting the grass. I'm just being blunt about it. But I think having a much better mapping system will allow us to be able to, you know, demonstrate which areas are being left for these purposes. So, as I said, when you look at it when you take a strategic view, which I think hopefully the redesign board will support us in doing, there's lots of areas for synergy. There's lots of areas for modern working practices, and we'll be leaning on John's team to help us implement these when we come to that point. And hopefully what we'll by delivering these efficiencies in the back office, where, you know, if you're having to travel to somewhere to hand in a paper job card that then has to be typed in by someone in an office, which then has to be split for budget purposes, you can only imagine the real saving in terms of how you can make the operation more efficient rather. There's also another area which, but last point was around the fact that we historically have had a fairly, shall I say, protective approach to plant and machinery being within each areas. And I do think
the Isle of Skye that you're talking about.
Yeah. I'm geography neutral. But there are definitely areas where we can make better use of that. And, you know, the work Tracy's been doing on the white lining team or the thermal repairs contract that we're doing that's going from area to area to area, I see that being really a big part of this. I think the Keswick Bridge is sometimes like the Berlin Wall. They shall not pass. Well, actually, you know, in terms of operational areas, there is room for much better sharing and operational flexibility. So that's, again, what I'm pushing Tracy and Debbie to demonstrate that it can happen. And part of the restructure within the new place cluster will definitely allow that. So I'm happy to deal with anything that doesn't involve the chemical makeup of glyphosate or anything too technical, and hopefully make them support us and be involved, because I think that's the whole point of the redesign board, is to actually be involved.
Imagine who's first with a hand up. Trish.
Yes, you're doing a review of what we do and when we do it. Are you also doing a review of if we're actually responsible for doing it? Because there are areas of grass that have been cut at least twice since we discovered we don't own the land, and they're not getting billed for it. So I think we're missing a wee opportunity to bring some money in there.
Any point?
Okay, Maureen?
We have a project, well, it's been on the go for several years now in our community, where we used to get a certain amount of money from communities and got topped up by the discretionary fund for taking care of our areas all along the seafront. Now, in September, we were assured it was Roads that was going to give it to us. And we were waiting for the money in April there, and it wasn't coming. And when we got to spoke to Roads, they weren't going to give it to us. But we have got it now at the moment. But it looks as though that may be something that's not going to happen again. I would like to know sooner rather than later, because if we have to go and try and find funders, I would like to know that, because if not, we're just not going to have that service. The Seaver Centre just won't be able to carry it.
You want to respond to that?
Well, but I think I did get involved in that
You
one.
did.
And I think there was a breakdown in communications, and I passed it over to Tracy to work with Ian Moncrief on making sure people know as early as possible what the plan is. But I think that's a really good example of where we're getting value. But you've got this debate between services. It's not me, it's not me, it's not me, it's not me. And actually the whole.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm just saying, no, that never happened.
But you know, I think the benefit that members will see from joining together roads and amenities and all, but also the kind of the bereavement services side of things, because they're all so interrelated. And we do have discussions at our management team about a one council approach. And you know, people are, and I like to think sometimes it's because people are, they care about their budget, which is great. They don't want to overspend, which is great. But actually, you know, it could be split across 2 or 3 different teams, or at least planned ahead for, so we can look at when we're doing the work on revenue and capital splits, that these things can actually be built in. But so what happened in that case is somebody was just trying to, you know, have a red line because we can't, but actually the social benefit and actually financial benefit to council, where it's part of another funding stream coming in. So I can assure you it has been looked at, and we'll give you plenty of notice.
And we're not worrying what budget comes from.
No, I guess that.
Muriel.
Thanks for that. I've just noted a couple of points. I think we need a single point of access, and exactly what Maureen's saying there. One of the issues is that communities and people in communities get very frustrated when things rumble on for over 2 years, 3 years, and there are a lot of legacy things going on. Even as members, you know, I emailed somebody this week and said, are you still involved in lighting, for example? And you're trying to sort of navigate the most complex system. And we have too many single points of failure. The other thing is we've still got the old district council custom and practices. And I know that we run Badenoch and Strathspey, but we find that there are things we're told, oh, but they don't do that in Nairn. And that's fine, but we need to sort of try and move into 2025 and maybe even move forward. So I think we need to work with that. And there's a lot of legacy issues, and you know, Trish is absolutely right. There's grass that is cut that shouldn't be cut. There's grass that should be cut that isn't cut. You've got communities that are absolutely delighted with the support they've had for wildflowers, and that should be lauded, because sometimes we tend to react to the people that complain most. But we've got communities in our area where you've got Aviemore Path pilots, you've got Kinusi that do loads of stuff, you've got the garden grillers in Newtonmore, you've got all these people to help in the council, and it would be nice sometimes just to acknowledge the work that they do, and if there's something that they notice, again, that single point of contact, particularly with trees, because we've got a lot of diseased trees around, and we need to be a bit more proactive on that. Particularly, I noticed even driving up today, there's a couple down because of the high winds. So we need to know who's doing what, and we need to work and save. We will save money, but we are our own worst enemies because we create bottlenecks and delays.
Is there anything you want to respond on that?
I totally agree, and I think that's the whole benefit of us merging things together. But it's also about having that strategic point of contact that will allow you to talk about roads and amenities at the same time and not be chasing here, there, and everywhere. What's really important, I think, for everybody and for me is that the operational teams get on with their operational activities. But there needs to be that point where people can go and not just hope for an answer, but expect an answer. And I know it's a frustration for members. Sometimes it's a frustration for me because, I don't get. So that's definitely part of this whole process, is to not just look at the, what areas are cut when, but actually how do we deal with the questions that come in. And I appreciate sometimes the service isn't good enough.
I think as well, I would add to that, particularly in roads for community or boards that have different road providers between Bear Scotland, Amy, and obviously Highland Council roads. That is a real challenge, and the communication at member level and local level seems to be non-existent in some cases, and it's really, it works when you build up personal relationships, but that's not exactly reliable either.
Okay, moving to members. First, John, you're online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wanted to comment on the report on 7.4 about staffing, and looking at hopefully to have less seasonal staff and more permanent staff. That would be very welcome. Staff that are under these conditions are temporary contracts, and it gives them no security. And we're looking for more security for more staff within the Highlands. It keeps the income there. So I would look forward to that being developed and look forward to seeing that. And I would also like to comment on 8.1, I think, on the timescales. There's timescales down as far as sort of week 8. I was just wondering, does that mean that the next time the redesign board meets, that we'll be able to get more specific timescales as to looking at this project? Thank you.
So absolutely, that timescale is basically for that first piece of APSI work that will then come forward with recommendations that will come through this board. So absolutely, and the idea of since I started in my roads, having responsibility for roads, the question of annualised contracts where you would be doing amenities in the summer, and burials and or gritting duties in the winter, would offer that year-round security, and it's definitely something I'm still hopeful we can take through and come up with a model that will work. Because you're right, I think when roads and amenities were split, we lost that almost grace and favour type activity, and it became more difficult to get different parts of different teams to do different things. So I definitely think we've got a real opportunity as long as we can sell it right. I think there's always going to be a place for seasonal work because we get students in and such like. But I think it's finding a much better balance than we've currently got.
Okay, Caroline.
Well, I'd like to echo Lynn's point about the temporary contracts. It'd be good if we could get more staff on permanent contracts. I also would like to mention when Malcolm was talking about the rewilding, or say aside from basically, I know some of it is wildflowers and we're not cutting grass, but I'm wondering if we could do, if there is apparently 1 in 10 ticks in the Highlands carry Lyme, and our staff are out working. And I appreciate there is a climate emergency and we're trying to not cut as much and everything, but just wondering if we could run some kind of awareness raising within the staff, because it's not, people think it's just a bullseye thing and it's not. So I'm wondering if that's something that you could consider doing to raise awareness among the staff that are out and in the longer grass.
No, definitely. I'll find out what does actually happen, because I'm sure it's something that's in our risk register. But I'll find out, and I think if there are training available, that sounds a really good idea.
Even putting the stuff out in their little, how you've got the packs and the to take the ticks out.
Yeah. No.
Thanks, Trish.
Yeah, just on that, Morgan Lee McCallum might be able to help you with that, and there's several leaflets out there. That's your left. So maybe you want to pick some of them up. Else might solution know.
Okay, thanks. John.
Thank you. I'm sure we all get emails from people that we may not. They come in as a bundle and there's names on it you don't know. And I'm beginning to think that we should have a directory of everyone who works in the council, if you like, a single point for each department or something like that. So we can actually, if we email and we don't get a response, we can at least phone them. But it would give us an opportunity to get hold of people in the council. 10,500 of them, aren't there? And that's quite a lot to work your way through. So I'm just thinking, if we could have that, and you actually sort of have a search box. So if you wanted swimming or something, you put swimming in the box. If you knew their name, you could put their name in the box. You could do all sorts of, you could ask it in different ways to come up with the information. Because I'm finding, sometimes you've got people you've never met in your life or you've never spoken to, but and you meet them, it's a bit strange, all this. And we did, on our phones, we have a certain number of telephone numbers, don't we? It's not a definitive list, I don't think.
Yes.
And I think we should have an access. This could be protected and only for members, so that the public don't have free access to it. And I'm just hoping that this could perhaps be added on to our new website.
I think that's more something that Alison would be happy to look at under my council remit. Yep.
Could I just come in on that point?
All right, if you're just going to make a point relative to that.
Yeah, I mean, when I first came in, one of the things that really struck me is that there was no organisation tree. I couldn't find people and where I needed to go. Mm-hmm. And it was very, very difficult to actually look up the tree to see who was responsible and look down the tree. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And something like that would be extremely useful for members.
Mm.
Thanks. Yeah, the valid points. When I first put my hand up, it was to ask another question about how are we going to reduce the volume of FOIs? What are the FOIs that we think, and this is page 19, number 2, the goals, the first point, to reduce the volume of freedom of information requests. What is it that people are continually requesting? We know that we're now going to put that information up, make them aware of.
So that part of that part of this paper is actually to do with the targets when the roads redesign was started. One of the aims, there was a lot of FOIs coming in, and one of the aims of the roads redesign process is so that we can actually see FOIs reduced. At this moment in time, the way to understand that is through the fact that the roads operations managers and the roads team through with Tracy's team have to actually deal with that. So they're the first point. They'll be able to say, yes, there is a reduction in that. So that's what this acknowledgement is here in terms of actually how do we monitor that better, like the conversation that was had this morning at Corporate Resources. I've already asked if that is something that could actually be looked and incorporated, not just actually not in this particular part of the redesign board work, because that's all that reference is to see if we can get the FOIs reduced. And there is an acknowledgement that the FOIs are being reduced. But maybe also when you go back to the first paper that came today to the redesign board and the work that we can possibly maybe look to incorporate in that. So I think there's what you're talking about is actually got two kind of focuses. One is that this is just us knowing that there should be a reduction. How do we identify that reduction would be in one of the earlier papers in the redesign board. So Tracy, do you want to comment on that?
It was just to say that most of the FOIs that we get in the roads team, at least, are mainly in connection with the condition of the road, number of potholes, when was the road last inspected, when was maintenance last done, and what we were saying in terms of particularly the new road inspection technology that we're hoping to introduce as part of phase 2 of roads redesign. That should give us better information about the condition of the network. And we've also got plans in place to put more information on the council's website in terms of the number of defects and the maintenance programs and that kind of thing. So the more that we can divert onto those information sharing platforms, the less there'll be a requirement for individual staff to get involved, and hopefully people will just be able then to self-serve that information. So that's what we're hoping we'll be able to achieve through this.
Okay, and just on the very same point, are the freedom of information requests we're getting, are they from individuals or community councils or journalists typically?
All of them.
All of them, and insurance companies.
Okay, right, insurance companies also.
Yeah.
The working group for the roads redesign, we're very aware of what it is that we're actually looking to try and reduce through the work of the redesign board. So relevant points, but we're actually on the amenities paper now. But were you wanting to say something? No. Okay, Barbara.
Oh, yes, thank you, Raymond. Yeah, just tying into what John Edmondson and John Bruce were saying about a direct, that would be so helpful. And I'm sure there is a variety of ways you could do it, split into directing you to your ward and different departments. When we're not as councillors, I find, John Edmondson, you are not alone, been here 3 years, and I still am surprised at when somebody moves on to another department connected with your ward, we're not told about it, and you're kind of floundering. Right.
You know,
sorry?
It's to escape members, Barbara. It's to get away
yes. Clearly is, but it's so frustrating. But when you go to like a local public meeting or something, it's not a good look for the council when other people are telling us who is now in charge of a department, or no, so-and-so's left, so-and-so's gone there. That really isn't a good look when we don't know that answer. It should be flagged up, and when people are officers or people are off sick, or especially long-term or on holiday, fair enough, everyone's entitled to the holiday. But on the bounce back link, could there be, some do it, but not all, so contact this one, the alternative contact. So I'm surprised there isn't a redirection of mail when somebody is off or when somebody leaves a department, instead of inquiries sitting stagnant because nobody can get into their emails. I've heard that one before, and then inquiries can't get processed or issues sorted, which is bizarre for an organisation that should be efficient. You know, I just think we
Barbara,
need to look
Barbara,
at the
can I just,
efficiencies.
Barbara, can I just let you know that we're actually on the amenities paper of the redesign board. However, what you're saying and what John was mentioning and has been referred to by both Johns and here, it is actually part of another relative project that's going on in the redesign process. Alison, I've looked at Alison about 10 times since we've been around the table, because it's all under the project that Alison's actually looking at, which is one of the other projects that's listed at the beginning of your papers. So we've kind of we've kind of mixed one or two of the projects up here, because there is some correlation between some of those projects. But if I can bring it back to amenity, so I hope that helps you, Barbara.
Yes, it crosses over a lot. Right, thank you.
You're welcome. There's no other contributions. I'll make one final contribution myself. In terms of amenities, going forward, I really would like to see. There's a couple of things that I think that sometimes we find it really difficult to be able to do things that are different, and that we could get a really good benefit from, because sometimes in our communities they don't like change. For me, I'll give you an example. We've had a huge park, a massive park. It does nothing. It is just a grass park. It performs no function other than for dogs to be walked on it, and that's rare enough. And last year, our amenities crew and ourselves took a brave decision to allow it to grow. And if we allowed that to grow, boy, did we find out about it. Now, we went through a little bit of pain, but this year we've some really good things are coming out of it. That's probably the painful way in how not to do it, but you learn lessons from it. If you look at that area now, because we let that area grow and we cut it, there is wildflowers coming. There's wildflowers coming, and everything from buttercups to you name it, and you can just see it. Now there are those who won't acknowledge that; they just want it cut. But there's a conversation to be had with our community, and it's how that conversation takes place that I'd like the amenities. I'd like the amenities group to have a look at. How do we help educate, persuade communities, talk to our communities, consult with our communities, maybe through community councils or what have you. So if we can have
into the school.
Okay, so these are the ideas I'd like to see coming forward in terms of the amenities project here, to help empower officers, empower members, empower community councils to realise that actually, you know what, change could be a good thing. The second thing I'd like to see as well, there are case studies. There's loads of them. You go through different villages where we now have community asset transfers. We now have long-term leases. We now have volunteer groups involved in lots of things, and for maybe a number of years. And it's transformed some of our areas. And for that to be available, for other areas to be able to see that and to encourage them to do similar, I think that would also help us to be able to deliver on the work of the amenities project. And I know that you mentioned about glyphosate and weed control, but that's a classic of where it bridges more than just grass control or weed control. It bridges roads as well. And it's understanding, if we get the first two things that I was talking about there just now, could actually help us so greatly in actually reducing the necessity for glyphosate. And that was always what I thought the motion for glyphosate was all about, apart from the fact that we clumsily did it at the time that we did it. And I can remember it because I was in the opposition, and it was our motion that came to council. We're living with the legacy of it even to date. But it's all meant in the right, it's meant for the right reasons. So It is to do with privacy. It was to do with any kind of weed control. It's to do with any kind of amenity control. So I think we need to be a little bit wider in our vision in terms of the work of this group, and I'm looking forward to that stuff coming back to council. I hope these are acceptable suggestions. Trish.
The wildflower meadows are not going to help us with the grass that comes up through the curbstones on pavements and things like that, which makes the place look really untidy.
Yeah.
So we're going to still have to look at some sort of replacement.
Yeah, which is what the group needs to look at going forward with.
Because we've done an exercise on that already.
And that came up with the cost as well.
Oh, that's good.
Muriel, one last point.
So just on the back of what Trish was saying, have you got any of your team working with Forestry Scotland, because they've been looking at been doing some work using rock salt, I think it is.
We've sprayed most of the seaboard with rock salt and salt and vinegar.
Yeah, and some of the community have been, forestry have been working with some of the community woodland places to do that. So I think, it would be nice again to build relationships with these people as well, and you never know, get future staff through.
I'm going to bring the shutters down on it now. Thank you very much. We'll look forward to lots of good ideas actually forward there. You're happy to accept the recommendation for that item? Okay, those of you online, if you can now move it, if you're intending to join the website,